How to stop victim blaming and narcissistic abuse. Hi there. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. As you know, I'm Dr. Nachi Sinha, and this is the 5th video of our narcissistic relationship series. In my previous videos, we've talked about different issues. Red flags of a narcissistic relationship, how to end a narcissistic relationship, how to help people suffering in narcissistic relationships, and the detrimental damages, detrimental effects of, being in a narcissistic relationship. In today's video, I'm going to talk about an important and a common problem that takes place in these situations. Victim shaming. Victim shaming is one of those things that, apart from suffering the abuse that they go through, victims also have to deal with another layer of problems, which comes in the shame of victim shaming. Here we go. Thank you. Hi. So when a person exists in an abusive relationship, they're bombarded with thousands of critical questions. Like, why did it happen? What did you do? Didn't you see it coming? Maybe it was your fault. And why are you speaking up now? These questions crush the victim's self-esteem and make them regret their decision to come out of the abusive relationship. That's how intense this gets. And such questions, and judgmental remarks have two major damaging effects. Number one, it sort of gives more power to the abuser. So when people ask all kinds of hateful questions from the victim, and it's almost as if demand a justification from them, it sort of gives more strength to the abuser. The abuser enjoys seeing the victim not being trusted by the people. Moreover, sort of shaming and blaming the victim frees the abuser from the accountability of their actions. Furthermore, when the abuser sees that society and people are not holding them accountable, then they get more powerful. They continue to abuse their victims because they're aware that, nobody will question them. Another damaging impact of victim shaming is victims do not raise their voice. Now, when people come across, cases where the victim was questioned, judged, or asked to justify themselves, it makes them afraid. They suffer from any abuse from the past, and if that's happened, then they choose to stay silent because they know that if they speak up, guess what? Society will blame them because that's what they just saw. So when victims choose to suffer instead of standing up for themselves, their abusers abuse them more. Victims' physical and mental health deteriorates drastically. Now, instead of walking out from abuse and living their lives happily, they live in misery, just so they don't have to deal with the questions of society. And what kind of society is that chooses to punish the victim? Moving on, let's explore some helpful ways to stop victim shaming in the case of narcissistic abuse by a partner in a relationship. We're going to talk about roughly eight ideas here. Number one, be all ears for the victim. Just listen, when a victim comes to you and shares a problem they're dealing with. And I've talked about this before as well, about the importance of listening and paying attention and actually caring. Don't ask, the type of questions that seem to be a bit, prodding in nature. So let them vent their feelings with whatever they have, negative emotions or what they might be going through. It takes a lot of courage for victims to step up and share their problems with someone that they trust. Now, if they choose you to trust, don't let them down. Be supportive and let them know that you are always there for them. Listening to victims without any judgments will make them confident in their decision to expose the abuser and end the misery of the relationship they're in. Moving on, the second point that we'll talk about is do not press for details. Now, when a person comes to you and shares the ugly details of abuse, don't force them to share more. You might press them for more information that you can help them in a better way. That's understandable. But this can make the victim uncomfortable and they might stop sharing the problem with you. So don't force the victim for details or ask them questions that might be painful and hurtful for them. Let the victim open up at their own pace and comfort. They might not want to share certain information because it might be painful or traumatizing to them. And you know what? So be it. Moving on to the third point that I want to talk about is give them all the help that they need. Now, instead of passing sarcastic comments or withdrawing your support from victims, provide them with the help they need. And many people suffer financially when they walk out of an abusive marriage or relationship, especially when the one partner is so controlling and narcissistic in that case. When they ask for help, people remind them that the partner was providing for them and they shouldn't have left them. I mean, such remarks and suggestions to go back to the abuser make the victim feel guilty for asking for help. So in no circumstances should you tell the victim that they were better with the abuser and shouldn't have left. We instead try to help them in every way you can to make their lives easier. Now, what I said might sound horrible, but these things happen. They happen all the time. Up next, we're talking about the next point that I'd like to point out. Encourage them to seek therapy or help. Now, many people, have a misconception that only domestic violence, of the physical nature hurts the victims. They fail to realize that being a victim of a toxic relationship is mentally draining and exhausting. It shakes the confidence of the person who's going through it and triggers their anxiety and can cause significant mental health issues, including depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, hence, instead of implying to the victim that that they're at fault for a failed relationship and the abuse that they suffered, encourage them to overcome their trauma. Motivate them to take professional help for healing and pain and the damages that have been inflicted on them by the abuser. Next point, do not cut them out of your lives. Yeah. Do not cut them out of your lives. Victims of narcissistic abuse are told by their partners that they are not good enough, not worthy of love and respect. The constant belittling and mistreatment by the abuser make them negative and bitter, and they take out their negative emotions perhaps by getting angry with their friends and loved ones. The victim's bitter behavior might compel you to maintain distance from them. People might even think that the victim's behavior is the cause of the failed relationship. These traps are there. But don't forget that dealing with abuse is not easy. And expecting the victim to get okay right after parting ways with the abuser is not only unreasonable, it is bordering on ridiculous. So be there for them. Give them the time and help they need to overcome the trauma and win the negative feelings. More importantly, give them the space to be able to do that. The next point, educate people, about being in a relationship with a narcissistic partner. See, the issue is that many times, society, people, us, we, do not consider emotional narcissistic abuse as abuse. Now, whenever victims complain that their partners yelled at them or mocked them, the narrative would be, or the responses they might have, with things like, hey, maybe your partner was on a bad day, it's okay, they're only joking. Don't forget that they provide for you and the kids and so on and so forth. Now, statements like this are the prime examples of victim shaming. So suppose you know someone who blames the victim or doesn't consider emotional and narcissistic abuse as abuse, now, in that case, educate them about the abuse and its damaging effects on the person's personality. Now, once people are aware of the effects of abuse, they will learn to support the victim instead of blaming them for the abuse that they've already suffered and also for what they would consider a failed relationship, which in reality was the victim saving themselves and getting out of it. The next point, encourage the victim to press legal charges. Now, this is a bit tricky, I understand, but again, we're talking about giving enough space and trust. But one effective way to end the victim blaming in abusive relationships is to make the abuser face the music, to be accountable for what they've done. So you must encourage the victim to report the abuse to legal authorities. Now, this will make the abuser realize that their wrongdoings, are noted and will prevent them from hurting other people. It will also sort of act as a deterrent for other abusers, to stop abusing their partners. Now, if the victims and people start reporting the abuse around them, abusers will refrain from resorting to violence. I will surely bring down the rate of abusive relationships. And more importantly, it will also give more power to the victims to realize that they can speak out and they can get out of things where they're being tormented. The next point, do not justify the abuser. Now, never justify or defend the abuser just because they're a friend or family member. I get it, it is hard to accept someone you know or claim to know so well as being an abuser. But listen to the victim when they come to you and complain about the abuser. Don't be quick to defend the abuser or try to justify their actions by saying things like, it's your fault. You provoked them. You should have listened to them. I mean, don't violent him with us. Maybe you're thinking too much. Maybe it's you who triggers him and so on and so forth. Now, defending and justifying the abuser's action is like, it is actually doubting the victim and denying, the existence of the victim's concerns. It crushes the victim's confidence and they feel helpless. You're kind of sending the victim back to the lion's den. Now, victim shaming has serious consequences. It makes the victim feel guilty for standing up against abuse and empowers the abuser to carry on with their abusive behavior. That's why it should be stopped. Instead, the victim should be applauded and supported for choosing to end the abusive relationship. In my next video, I will talk about the signs that show if you are a narcissist and you are the abuser we've been talking about. Or are you the narcissist abuser in your relationship? Well, we'll find out next time. In the meantime, thank you for watching this video and take care. And don't forget, in moments of doubt, if you're struggling, reach out and ask for help. Help does make a difference. Thank you. Take care.